Kuna Province, Afghanistan. Elevation, 6,000 feet. A narrow valley hemmed in by ridgelines. One road in, one way out. It should have been just another clearance ops standard sweep. In and out. No contact expected. Nothing serious, they were told. Nothing they hadn't done a dozen times before. But mountains don't care about orders. And valleys like Korangal don't play by rules. The sun hadn't cleared the ridgeline yet when the first round snapped past the point man's helmet. 2 clicks out from Base Hawk, 12 Americans moved into that valley. Only 11 came back. The enemy didn't hit them by accident. This was no random skirmish. They were waiting, watching, counting their footsteps, mapping their route, setting the trap. And then, it closed. Multiple fighting positions opened up at once. High ground, good cover, overlapping fields of fire. Like a textbook, only this textbook was written in blood. Contact left, contact front, RPGs from elevation. The LT's radio went dark. Squad broke right, dragging the wounded. Smoke, dust, screaming, confusion. Through it all, one man didn't move. He wasn't frozen. He wasn't scared. He was calculating, watching, adjusting his sling, checking his magazines. He saw what the rest of the platoon didn't. That they wouldn't all make it to the fallback point. That somebody had to make time. Somebody had to give the rest a shot. And that person was him. Staff Sergeant Marcus Delgado didn't flip a coin. He didn't ask permission. He didn't scream orders. He handed off his radio, passed his ammo to the private next to him, and said 10 words that would echo through the rest of their lives. Get them home. I'll buy you the damn window. And then he turned around. Toward the gunfire. Toward the ridgeline. Toward the last fight he would ever take part in. He could have run. He didn't. He could have survived. He chose not to. Because someone had to hold the line. And that someone was him. Before the mountain, before the ambush, before the last stand, there was Marcus. Born and raised in El Paso, Texas, son of a mechanic, grandson of a Korean War vet, football player, big brother, never the fastest, never the flashiest, but he never left anyone behind. Not in practice, not in life. Joined the army at 18. Straight into infantry school. 11 Bravo. The backbone of the fight. Assigned to the 101st Airborne, Screaming Eagles. Air Assault. Light Infantry. First deployment. Mosul, Iraq. 2006. He was 19. They say you lose some part of yourself over there. But Delgado somehow kept adding to who he was. He didn't harden. He didn't close off. He got sharper, wiser, kinder, even. 3 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, over 300 combat patrols, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor. But ask anyone in his squad what stood out most. It wasn't the medals. You twisted your ankle, he'd carry your ruck without blinking. Miss Chow, he'd slide you half his enemy. Didn't matter if you were new or a vet, Delgado had your 6. Always. Letters home were a ritual. Every Sunday, if there wasn't incoming, he'd write to his daughter, Sophia. Told her about the stars over Kandahar. Told her how proud he was. How he missed her laugh more than sleep. She was 5 the last time he saw her. He kept her crayon drawings folded in his breast pocket. Said they were better armor than the Kevlar. But the thing is, Delgado wasn't loud about it. Wasn't out to be a hero. He wasn't chasing headlines. He chased readiness. He chased accountability. He trained harder than anyone. Stayed later. Ran back through buildings after everyone else cleared out, just to be sure. I don't leave question marks, he once said. We clear the block or we don't leave. He had a saying. Always said it on missions when it got dicey. One of the privates caught it on a squad camp once. If anything goes down, I got you, no matter what. It wasn't just words. Everyone knew, if it went sideways, Delgado was the one who'd stay. He wouldn't even hesitate. And on that cold morning in Cuna, that's exactly what he did. Because the war was coming, and Staff Sergeant Marcus Delgado was about to make the choice that would define the rest of their lives. February 18, 2011. Cuna Province. Northeastern Afghanistan. High ground. Deep valleys. Ancient trails. It's where centuries of fighters have vanished into shadows, and where American forces, in the final years of the surge, were still pushing deep into insurgent strongholds. Operation Raven's Edge. The objective? Clear a narrow trail believed to be used for Taliban weapons transfers. Intel indicated caches along a centuries-old goat path cutting through the Chagall Valley. The mission was to sweep, secure, and return to Firebase Hawk before dusk. In. Out. Simple on paper. But maps lie. Valleys lie. And so do expectations. Bravo 3 actual. Confirm. Route Raven. Movement by 0500. Objective Raven Nest. Expect light resistance. Copy. Roger. Light resistance. Copy. Moving with 3rd Platoon. 3rd Platoon. Bravo Company. 12 men that morning. Normally 14, but 2 were out sick with a stomach virus from contaminated water. That made them under strength. And in terrain like that, every rifle counts. The squad was mixed. 2 veterans on their 3rd deployment. 1 new replacement. A corpsman who'd only seen 2 firefights. Delgado was their backbone. Squad lead. 6 years in. 4 deployments deep. He carried the map, the SATCOM, and every ounce of pressure. They called him baseplate, because nothing moved unless he was solid. He wasn't barking orders. He just knew where to be. You'd see him put a hand on your vest and nod, and you just knew, I got this. Their movement began before sunrise. Quiet. Disciplined. They passed shepherds. Kids. Nothing unusual. But that was part of it. That was the pattern. In Afghanistan, when the villages are suddenly too quiet, that's the loudest warning you'll ever get. Delgado noticed first. A dog that didn't bark. A boy who turned his face away. No women outside the homes. He stopped briefly, checked the ridge, then moved on. The team kept pace. 12 men. 600 meters of steep climb to go. No gunfire. No contact. Just the feeling. That heaviness in the chest. Like the mountain itself was watching. They didn't know it yet. But 2 teams of fighters had already moved into place. PKMs on the ridge. RPGs pre-positioned. Kill box prepared. The terrain narrowed at a choke point called Breaker's Cut. A 30-meter stretch between 2 rock faces. Once you were in, you were committed. And by 0651 hours, 3rd Platoon walked right into it. Contact front. Contact left. Overlapping fields of fire. Bravo 3 took cover, returning fire, dragging the wounded. They were pinned, hard. The LT's comms went down first. The squad medic took shrapnel. And in the chaos, Delgado made his call. He waved 2 fire teams toward fallback Point Echo. Then he turned back, toward Breaker's Cut. It wasn't his first ambush, wasn't his worst firefight, but it would be his last. Breaker's Cut. 600 meters above the valley floor. A corridor of jagged rock, barely wide enough for 2 men across. To the north, a sheer drop. To the south, a 60-degree incline covered in shale and scrub. It was supposed to be a brief crossing, a necessary evil on the path to Firebase Hawk. Instead, it became a coffin corridor. First came the PKM, from 300 meters up the ridge. Then another opened from the south. Crossfire. Seconds later, an RPG screamed across the pass and shattered into the rear element. 2 men down. Smoke. Screaming. Contact. High ground. Repeat, high ground both sides. Get down. Get, man down. Duffy's hit. They scattered. There was no clean formation, just instinct. The rocks offered cover, but the kill zone was designed that way. The enemy wanted them clustered. One round, one grenade, one RPG, and it'd be over. Delgado didn't freeze. He didn't panic. He started crawling. From man to man, checking wounds, repositioning rifles, whispering over the radio. He found Private Stein with a torn calf, dragged him behind a defilade with a busted M4, grabbed a spare mag and pressed it into his hand. He was everywhere. He patched my arm and shoved me behind cover, then was gone again. Like he was teleporting. Calm. So calm. Like this was routine. Lieutenant Marks went silent. The radio uplink, gone. Primary comms destroyed. They had no air support. No QRF. No way to reach Phibase Hawk. They weren't just outnumbered. They were outplayed. Return fire was organized, but thin. Suppression barely slowed the attackers. They were using elevation, bouncing positions, firing in coordinated shifts. They had discipline. Let the wounded crawl. Cut off the head. Focus on the ones returning fire. Delgado began forming a breakout maneuver. He marked the rear slope, narrow, steep, exposed, but it was their only shot. He signaled his team, 2 fingers, shoulder tap, move pointed. Silent. Efficient. He didn't ask. He just made us go. I remember him yelling, just once, "Go now. Don't think. Move." He stepped into the open, fired his saw in tight bursts to draw fire. He knew what that would do. He knew what it meant. He bought seconds. 4-6 men to clear the ridge. And then, he kept going. Reloaded. Changed position. Stayed loud. He knew they wouldn't stop until one man stayed behind. And he had already made peace with who that man would be. He stayed. With a bleeding arm. A jammed radio. And every gun on the ridge trained on him. Lieutenant Marks was alive, but barely. Shrapnel to the abdomen. Pressure dressing held with duct tape. He'd lost too much blood. The call was his to make, and he made it. He looked at Delgado and gave the order. Get them out. All of them. That's an order. Delgado scanned their faces. Dirty, blood-slicked, wild-eyed. Private Garcia was just 19. First deployment. Hadn't even fired his rifle until today. Next to him, Corporal Reyes, 3 cracked ribs. Doc Kendall had already used up the last of the morphine. And back behind them, Sergeant Polanski was dragging a wounded leg like dead weight. Delgado didn't say much. Never did. He unclipped his tags, pressed them into Specialist Griffin's hand, looked him in the eye, and said, "If they ask, tell them I held the line." He said it like it was nothing, like this was just part of the job, like handing over an extra mag. He didn't ask for volunteers, didn't wait for permission. There wasn't time, and no one else could do what he was about to do. There were only 2 exits left from Breaker's Cut, through the enemy, or under them. Bravo Actual, this is Delta 2. All elements pushing south under smoke. I'll stay up top. See you on the other side, or not at all. Some sacrifices are loud. Some come with medals, with salutes, with last words and hero music. Delgado's wasn't like that. He wasn't trying to be a martyr. He wasn't trying to make a point. He just did the math. Someone had to stay. He was the best shot, the fastest mover, the calmest head, and he had the least to lose. Or so he thought. It wasn't because he didn't love anyone. It was because he loved them too much. Enough to never let their sons die on a hill they never chose. That was the moment the rest of them lived. Because Marcus Delgado decided he wouldn't. There was no speech, no cry of defiance, no final words over the radio, just the sound of a weapon being loaded, and one man setting his boots in the dirt. Delgado wasn't just brave. He was smart, tactical, cold under fire. He used the rocks like old friends, set up interlocking fields of fire, backstopped with natural choke points. Anyone coming up that ridge would be funneled into a kill zone, if they made it that far. They were probing now, sensing a rear guard, thinking they had one straggler left to pick off. But Delgado wasn't buying time. He was rewriting the ending. Shoot and move. Shoot and move. Classic infantry doctrine. But Delgado was making it art. Every shot counted. Every burst made the enemy think twice. He wasn't just fighting, he was dictating tempo. We kept hearing fire behind us. We thought, maybe he's got a team with him. No way one guy's putting out that much hate. But it was just him. And then, at 39 minutes into the fight, he popped smoke. White phosphorus. Right on the enemy's mortar nest. A perfect signal. Air assets inbound. Delgado didn't just delay the enemy. He shattered their assault. What they thought was a straggler turned out to be a sentry. And he sent the enemy back in pieces. 12 to 15 minutes. That's how long he held them. Long enough for 6 Americans to disappear into the trees. Long enough to break the back of an ambush. Long enough to turn certain death into a chance at life. And by the time QRF arrived, the ridge was quiet again. Just torn earth, blood-black rocks, and the signature of a man who never left. When the Quick Reaction Force reached Ridge Echo, it was quiet. Too quiet for what had happened just hours before. The smell of cordite still hung in the air. Watch the left slope. This is it. This is where the contact was heavy. They found him slumped behind a boulder. Weapon empty. Barrel scorched. Hands black with carbon and dried blood. Nobody spoke. Just carried him. He'd covered us. Now it was our turn. He returned home beneath a folded flag, not in triumph, but in sacrifice. He gave his life not for medals, not for glory, but because he refused to let fear walk faster than his brothers. Because of Delgado, 23 soldiers made it home. Because one man didn't run. And long after the valley went quiet, his name kept marching. You don't just bury a soldier like Staff Sergeant Marcus Delgado. You remember him. In everything you do. In the way you train. In the way you lead. In the way you never, ever leave a man behind. A year after Raven's Edge, the Army named a combat training facility after him. Recruits now march through the gates under his name and learn what sacrifice really means. They gave her the flag her father never came home under. But in that moment, she didn't hold a symbol. She held a nation's promise to remember. I named my son Marcus. Figured the least I could do was make sure that name stayed alive. He died like he lived, protecting others. And if that's the last thing they ever say about him, that's enough. Delgado's final stand didn't happen in a vacuum. In 2009, US forces held off hundreds at Combat Outpost Keating in New Riston. In 1993, Rangers fought street to street in Mogadishu. But Delgado's fight? That was one man, one rifle, one choice. When word spread through Firebase Hawk, morale didn't drop. It rose. They didn't lose a man. They gained a reason. There are soldiers who serve. And then there are soldiers who set the standard. Delgado didn't write a legacy with speeches. He carved it in stone, with sweat, blood, and silence. He didn't just save our lives. He gave us a second chance to live them right. And I think about that every single morning. For most, war ends when the boots come off. But for those who fought beside Marcus Delgado, it never really left. His courage doesn't live in medals. It lives in the men who got to come home. In every family that stayed whole. In the way his story changes the way they serve, the way they love, and the way they live. This isn't just about one firefight. It's about the legacy that echoes through decades. Every generation has its heroes. This one chose to stay behind. There are names carved into stone, and then there are the stories behind them. Stories of quiet courage, of men who didn't ask to be called heroes, but earned the title anyway. If this story stayed with you, if you found something in Staff Sergeant Delgado's choice that speaks to what's best in us, subscribe to this channel. Not for views, not for likes, but because the world forgets fast, and some men should never be forgotten. Let us know what you would have done. Share a memory. Tag someone who serves. And above all, help us honor him. Like, comment, share, because remembrance is the only thing stronger than time.